Welcome to Predator World Hunting, special episode, part 1, dedicated to this, 20BR. Jeff and I have recently changed and went to this cartridge for all of our coyote hunting and predator requirements starting in 2019. So I'll let Jeff tell you a little bit of the background of why we went this way.
Yeah, well, for me, I started to, I normally shoot a 22-250, and that 22-250 was coming to the end of its barrel life. It was starting to get a little squirrely on me at the end of last season. So I started doing some research into different calibers and what would be ultimately the best caliber for coyotes for pelts. Chris shoots a 22-23, as you'll see in season 1 of PWH.
I formerly used to shoot a 22-250, but moved to the 223 because of pelt damage, even though I tried loading down, and I just found it just wasn't there. I liked the range of it, but I didn't like the damage, and there was holes to be sewn and even some throwaways. So I went to the 223, but it has limitations. It was great for pelt, for pelt damage, but it wasn't the best when I had to reach out there.
Yeah, so year after year, we consistently see you're doing a little better on your coyote pelts.
Yeah.
Probably 10 to 15 up, maybe even $20 more per pelt with harvesting them with the 223 versus the 22-250. So I knew that I wanted to try and do a little research and figure out if there's a better mousetrap out there to be able to anchor those coyotes even out at distance, and still hopefully bring home a little bit extra on the coyote check. But so for me, did a lot of reading. I'm a YouTube junkie. I watch a lot of different channels and try and gather as much info as I can, reading, internet, all that kind of stuff. And when some other people, obviously, that do a lot more of this than us and are very, very good at this game. A huge shout out to Lonnie Lesmeister and the boys at Cheyenne River Predator Hunters. He was nice enough to help me out, obviously, a little bit through Facebook Messenger, and had a little conversation with him, and he kind of put the seed in my head about the 20BR. I wasn't really familiar with the case, but obviously shooting some PRS the last couple summers, there's a lot of guys that use the BR case for different variations because of the accuracy potential and everything else. So started looking into it, and kind of we wanted to choose a bullet, obviously, that was going to have the best performance for coyotes.
Yep.
Chris currently shoots the 52 grain Berger in his 223 and has really good luck with it.
Found it to be very, very good on pelts. Fly grade. It was worked up a load that was excellent. So we did some research and found that Berger, well, I don't know if they still make it, but they discontinued it, but we have 4,000 rounds secured.
Yeah, we made sure we had enough for a couple, well, for the barrel life of our 2 rifles. But due to the high ballistic coefficient of the 55 grain 20 caliber Berger long range boat tail varmint bullet, it's going to be slippery in the wind, and it still gives us that mid 50 grain class bullet, and the ability to slow it down a little bit from the 22-250, pushing those weight of bullets out of the 22-250 in the 3,800 feet per second range. I was getting a lot of pelt damage. Even at medium ranges, I don't know if the medium range would be 1 to 150,
yeah.
But 200 even, you get some blowouts where you weren't getting that with the 223 slowed down.
Nope.
So then I started playing around with my reloads and slowing that 22-250 down. And when I got down to about that 3,600 range, I started to see a lot better performance on pelts. There wasn't as much damage, but obviously in the 22-250 case there was a lot of empty case volume, and I started to notice a little bit of accuracy differences, obviously, because of that. So this kind of made sense to me in that it was probably going to get us in that 35 to 3,600 feet per second range,
yep.
Pushing that 55 grain bullet that has a a way bigger ballistic coefficient than any of the Bergers or the. I was using the VMAXs at .290, and some of the tried the Nosler Varmageddon,
Yeah.
which they're right up there too. And so this is gonna fly a lot better in the wind. It's gonna it should, on paper, it just made sense. So we contacted our gunsmith and friend Dennis at Go Ballistic Gunsmithing here in Saskatchewan, and can't thank him enough for all his help on this 20 BR project. He loved the idea as soon as I pitched it to him. He's a big fan of the 6 BR case and all its potential for its accuracy, short, efficient case, and so we started making a plan on how we were gonna go about doing this. Started looking for barrels. Big thanks to Gary Eakin at Bighorn Sales out in BC. He sourced us the benchmark barrels for these builds. They're a 1 1/8 fast twist in order to stabilize this little 20 caliber bullet, and so far in initial testing it's been working really well, and then I have so many other people that I need to thank, I guess, in the internet world and the YouTube world. Some people that I've been fortunate enough to meet at some PRS matches this summer down in Montana. Sam Millard from Panhandle Precision. I've watched almost all his videos and learned a lot on the reloading front from him. Scott Satterley and the 6.5 guys, I've pretty much adopted most of their practices as far as reloading and how they do things. It sped things up quite a bit. And who else? Yeah, I don't know if I'm forgetting anybody out there. I apologize, but those are some of the big ones. Gavin from Gavin Tube is another one. I've kind of set up the reloading bench from a lot of his recommendations and seen what he's doing. And but yeah, so here it is. It's well, go ahead and tell them what you went with for your build.
Yeah, so I went with. I'm a big fan of the Tikka Action. I love the Tikka Action. I got it in 300 wind short for my deer and elk and moose, and I love it. I'm actually having Dennis build me a 6 BRA on the BR case off a Tikka Action for my PRS rifle for next year. That's coming up. So I went with the Tikka T3 Action, and then like Jeff said, we went with the 1 1/8 twist benchmark barrel, and Dennis put it all together. It was when we first started shooting it, we were blown away, and we'll send, that'll be in part 2 of this series, of how accurate it was right out of the gate. The barrel still sped up for the first rounds, but it was quite, it blew away expectations. So I went with the Tikka Action, the benchmark barrel. We put in a Bravo. I wanted to go with a chassis that I could run with all winter long, that wasn't cold, because we hunt in sub-zero temperatures out here in Saskatchewan, as cold as 30 below centigrade. So wanted something that's going to stay a little bit warm on the hands. So we went with the Bravo, the KRG Bravo chassis, and then topped with the Athlon Midas TAC in APRS 3 reticle. Yep. Yeah, the Christmas tree reticle, and in mill. I shoot this on my 22 LR PRS rifle, and that Jeff and I just got back from a match in Medicine Hat, and I couldn't be happier with it. It's a great optic. So we'll see how it performs this year, but so far in the testing, I've been nothing but pleased.
Yeah, big thanks to the boys at the SAPRL, the Southern Alberta Precision Rifle League. They put on great matches. Chris and I both run this Midas TAC scope on our 22s as well. There was a lot of dial cranking that day.
There was a lot of dial cranking.
22 all the way out to 300 yards, so that was a ton of fun. And the scope worked amazing. It's got nice positive clicking turrets, and tracks good. I own a couple of them now, and I couldn't be happier with them. So
absolutely,
Scotty Glass at Red Star Targets, thanks very much for getting us onto these. We love them. and yeah, they work great. So
Yeah, and I love that there's a capped windage. So out in the field, probably coyote hunting, not going to dial for wind, probably hold for it. So it's nice that that's capped. It's not going to get them when we're carrying our gear in and out of the truck. It's nice to have it capped. Like I said, positive zero stop. It's exactly what we figure we need to make it happen for coyote hunting this year.
yeah, for sure.
Well, now that we've gone through my build, let Jeff show you his.
Yeah, right on. So like I said, mine was originally a 22-250. This gun was built by Chad Dixon at Long Rifles Inc. in South Dakota. Due to the restrictions in Canada with trying to get firearms back down in the States to do any repairs or any work to, it was next to impossible. It was going to be very, very expensive to get it there. So started looking for other means to get it done here. So like we said, the Benchmark 8 twist 5 contour barrel. It's on a Bighorn Arms TL2 action. It's been running great, love it. It's on a Manners T5A stock with the adjustable cheek piece, with the LRI cheek piece hardware, ultra lightweight. What else? Big thanks to Mike from Johnson Brothers Customs in Calgary, who took on the tedious task of Cerakoting this barrel to match it almost perfectly to the original paint on the gun. So thanks, Mikey, for doing that for me. Love it. This Cerakote is tough as nails. It's worth every penny. We stay out till the latest last second, getting every minute of hunting in we can. Gets thrown back in the reloading room, wet. We're in the snow, in the rain, in the cold outside, freezing cold temperatures, and back in the warm truck to the next stand, and it just never had a spot of rust or anything on it. So the Cerakote is definitely worth it. I wasn't sure when I first got it, but now after running it for I don't know how many years now, it's held up.
Yeah, you convinced me.
Yeah,
I'm a fan.
Big time. But yeah, so thanks again, Mike, for helping us out there, and that's pretty much it, I think, for mine.
All right. So we're going to be off to Jeff's reloading bench, and we'll take you through the whole procedure of what it took to make this bullet and how we're going to run it this year.
Yeah, we only got about 500 or 600 pieces of size, so it shouldn't take too long.
No, it shouldn't take too long.
But we'll do it all, and we'll show you how we do it on with a progressive press. We should be able to get all this brass size from 6 BR right down to 20 BR in 2 passes on the progressive press. And yeah, so there again, thanks to all the people I mentioned earlier for all their insight and input, and kind of stole a lot of their methods to help make this quick and easy, and it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be an absolute hammer. I can't wait.
Absolutely. I'll see you there at the reloading bench.
Cheers. Well,
welcome to Jeff's reloading room. This is the first in the process of getting brass and the loads done for the 20 BR. So I'm going to step out of the picture, and Jeff's going to show you what it's going to take to get brass ready and make 20 BR brass from 6 BR.
Thanks, Chris. What we're starting with today, obviously, that we talked about earlier, is brand new Lapua 6 BR Norma brass. So in its parent version, I like taking a few measurements right off the hop and looking at the overall length of the case. Well, I guess not the overall length, but it would be the case length from the cartridge base to the shoulder datum line. So right now we're at 1.155. Just kind of measure a couple just to see we are getting the same number. And we are. Obviously the Lapua brass is top of the line, which is pretty good. There's many others that are good as well, but we've chosen to go down the Lapua road, so that's what we're going to use. So we'll write that number down because we want to keep track of how far we are going to bump back that shoulder. And I usually, once we shoot it one time, I want to see how much it grows in the chamber of the rifle, and that way we know, I guess, how far we're going to bump it back on its first reload after we fired it. So I've gone ahead and set up the dies we're going to use today. We're going to use a Hornady Lock and Load progressive press to try and get this 6BR brass from its 243 neck to a 20 caliber for our 20BR project. So we're going to be sizing it all the way down to our final bushing size is 228. The form trim die from Redding is just a small die that the only thing I'm using that for is to neck the case from its original size down to 0.250. This die will take it to. And then we're going to use a Redding full-length bushing die in 6mm BR Remington with the first of 4 bushings, and that bushing is a 243 bushing. And then the third die in the press will be a 20 BR full-length bushing die, and we'll be using a Redding 237 bushing. So my thought process was that I didn't want to overwork the brass. I want to step down the neck of the brass gradually enough that we don't overwork the brass. And on the initial test loads we did last time before we're doing the mass of the brass now, it worked really well. Obviously, our good friend and gunsmith Dennis Lair from Go Ballistic Gunsmithing has helped me out a lot with this project. Help us both out, I guess. He just finished getting our barrels chambered up, and we're pretty much ready to rock with load development. So here we go.
So how many full-size steps down before the brass is sized, Jeff?
We'll be able to do, the nice part about this is we'll be able to take this 6BR brass, get it all the way down to 20 BR brass in 2 passes on the progressive press. So going from, I believe, the outside neck diameter on the parent case is in the range of 2.267. So the initial step is going to go from 267 down to 250. Then we're going to take it down from 250 to 243, so 0.007, and then down to 237, so 0.006, and then 232, which is 5 thou off, and then the final bushing we're going to use is a 228. I didn't have all the tooling. I'm still waiting for a 20 caliber pilot for my neck thickness gauge to tell exactly how, but when the last die that we're going to use is a Sinclair Gen 2 mandrel die, which will open the case neck back up to 2 thou under the size of the bullet to give us our proper neck tension. So the last bushing itself isn't really critical in that we don't need it to be exact. We just need it to be sized down far enough so that the mandrel die will open it up to the proper size, so that when we seat our bullets it'll have consistent neck tension. So like I said earlier in the studio, there's a lot of credit that goes to the 6.5 guys that took a lot of their methodology that they have put on YouTube, and again, thanks to Dennis for all his help and knowledge, and he had a great interest in this project, and thought it'd be really cool because he's a big fan of the parent, the 6BR case, like I mentioned earlier as well. So what we're going to do first is we'll get this brass all lubed up, and get these dies set in the press with the proper bushings, and then we'll go from there.
Excellent. Let's get started.
Okay, so we're going to start by lubing up our cases so they run through the dies without getting stuck. Pour all 300 of them into this box. And then we're going to use the lanolin and 99% isopropyl alcohol from our friends 6-5 guys again. Spin it down. Continue to mix it up. We'll do that 3 or 4 times. Make sure we get some inside the case necks and outside. So the isopropyl alcohol flashes off and just leaves the lanolin behind and lubricating, and then you can start it running them through. Let that sit for a minute and let the alcohol flash off, and there'll be just a thin film of lube left behind, and should be good.
Excellent. Give her.
So while we're waiting for the lube to do its thing, alcohol to flash off, we'll set up these Redding full-length bushing dies. So what I did was I took the decapping pin out because we don't require it. And we are going to use our first bushing 243. So we set these up so that we screw them all the way in until it meets the bottom. So it's fully seated, and then we back it off 1/8 of a turn. I put markings on all my dies so that I know where we're at. So that's right about there. Tighten it down. And you can just hear the bushing move. And then next we'll do the same with the 20 BR die. Same thing, decapping pin taken out. And we are going to use the 237 bushing in this die. Set this up exactly the same as the other one. Screw it in all the way in until it meets the bottom. Back it off the 16th. So the easiest way for me was another recommendation by the 6-5 guys to make 2 markings at 90 degrees on the die itself, and then I put a white mark on the top of the bushing die, so that when I am at fully closed, it matches up with the one line, and I put it halfway in between the two to get my 1/8 of a turn. And we can hear that bushing moving just a hair in there as well. And we're set up for our first pass. Okay, so we've given the brass some time to sit with the lube on it. The alcohol's flashed off. We just got a thin film of lanolin lube on there now. And this is the nice part about using a progressive press for this. This would take quite a bit longer on a single stage, but with the 3 dies, now every crank of the handle is going to spit out a piece of brass. So our original measurement on the first piece of brass was 1.155, and now we're at 1.154. So I've set up the first two dies not to bump the shoulder at all, and the third one is only bumping us 1 thou. We don't need a bunch, we just want to make sure we're full length sized, so we should have no problems chambering this brass in our hunting rifles. Obviously, being the goal, we're not shooting bench rest, we're using this in the field, in the snow, in the rain, and we want it to cycle through the gun 100% of the time. So for now we're just going to do a 1 thou on the initial go around. So from here it's just a matter of feeding the press and cranking out brass. Only 295 more pieces to go. So we're just about through the first pass of the 300 pieces of the original 6BR brass. And once we get these last few run through, we'll take out the form trim die, we won't need it anymore. And we'll change out the bushings in the other 2 dies. And then we'll do pass 2, which will get it down to its final neck size. There you go, pass 1 done.
Awesome, that took what, about 20 minutes?
Yeah, about that, give or take. Okay, so next we're going to change out these bushings in these 2 dies and add our Sinclair Gen 2 mandrel die. I guess one of the things I forgot to mention earlier was I did take the decapping pin out, but I don't have the ball sizer in either of these dies. Again, going off the recommendations from 6.5 guys, is the reason we're doing that is we're not, everything is happening on the upstroke of the press. The brass is getting sized all on the upstroke, and coming out of the dies there's very little resistance. The ball sizer isn't pulling the brass, so we're not stretching it that much, not really overworking the brass. The nice part about it is we've pretty much eliminated the need to trim any of our brass as we fire it and through its life. So I don't like trimming brass. I don't know too many people that enjoy trimming it, but everything's going to be happening on the upstroke, as you'll see here soon. So we took out the 2, 4, 3 bushing out of the 6BR die, and now I'm going to put in the 2, 3, 2 neck size bushing in the full length seating die. Again, screw this down till it fully stops right there, 1/8 of a turn, tighten the lock ring down, and we're using a little O-ring in there as well so it floats a little bit. I'm going to put this in station 2 now instead of station 3, so we bump that up, and we're going to do the same with the 20BR full length bushing die. Take out this bushing, the 237 bushing, and for the final size, because this is the one we're going to be using all the time now from now on, I've got a 228 titanium nitride bushing, and we'll screw that in until it fully stops. Right there, back 1/8 of a turn. Got a little play there. That looks good. We're going to put that in station 3. And then our final die is a Sinclair Gen 2 mandrel die, and we're using a neck turning mandrel for 20 caliber. So obviously our bullet is a .204 caliber bullet. This will size the neck to .202, the tooth out under the neck thickness, so that we'll have tooth out neck tension on the bullet. And again, like I spoke about earlier, being that this is opening the case mouth, we've sized it slightly below that to squeeze it down. This is going in to the brass on the upstroke of the press again, so that the brass is being opened up as it goes up, as opposed to the ball sizer that's being pulled through the brass and tends to stretch that neck a little bit more. So it tends to not overwork the brass as much. Concentricity is really good and seems to be working real good. I've done it with my 22-250, my 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, you name it. Kind of adopted that practice and it seems to be working out really well. Plus you get to do it on a progressive press, which speeds things up for me anyway. And when you're trying to do 300 pieces at once or get 500 or 600 pieces ready for PRS, it makes time at the bench more valuable, and get to spend more time on the range, which we all enjoy. So anyways, we're going to go through pass 2 now, and we're going to go through the first of the bushings on pass 2. So let's squeeze the neck down a little bit more. You can see I don't know if you can get a close-up of that, but we've come just, it's sizing it just below the, or just above, sorry, the shoulder neck junction. So we've got a little bit of a false shoulder there that will help actually in the first firing to act like a false shoulder and let that brass form to the chamber. So now we're up inside the mandrel die, and that's opened the neck back up. So now we could, once we clean this lube off, which we have I'll show you how to do that procedure, but once we clean that off, you could seat a bullet in there, and it should have tooth out neck tension on there. So we'll run this through these 300 pieces through the press again. It's still got plenty of lube on the brass from the initial application after running it through the first time. It's running through nice and smooth.
And Jeff, the brass will never be perfectly formed until it's fired, but we're doing this through our hunting rifles, not our precision rifles. Therefore, we're gonna run our first run of these when the bullet's in through the gun in hunting situations and be fine with it.
Yeah, and you'll see. I mean, Dennis has done an amazing job with chambering these barrels, these brand new barrels. We chose benchmark barrels for this build, 20 caliber. We went with number 5 Contour fluted 1 1/8 twist for our 55 grain Berger high BC varmint bullets that we've chosen for this build, like we mentioned earlier back in the studio. Again, big thanks out to Lonnie from the Cheyenne River Predator Hunters for the recommendation. The more I looked at it on paper, theoretical, it makes sense, like we talked about earlier, as to the why. But with this 8-twist barrel from Benchmark, I shoot Benchmark barrels in my PRS gun, and I have been nothing but happy with that. So I have no reason not to think that this is going to look good. After Dennis did the chambering, the initial test rounds we loaded up for him, he shot, and he sent us pictures of the first, well, I guess it would be the second, third, and fourth bullets that came out of that barrel. And we'll have to maybe show you the picture, but I mean, with absolutely no load development, I threw 31 grains of varget into these cases with a Federal GM205M, which is their gold medal match primer, and the grouping was actually for not doing any load development at all on brass that hadn't been fired, and this was you basically being firefied a little bit at the same time. It grouped very, very well. So quite confident that these guns are going to shoot. You mentioned earlier that they're not really precision guns. I would tend to disagree. I think these are going to be very, very much a precision rifle, and a tool. Obviously, what we're going for is putting more fur in the truck. And when you can have the utmost confidence in your equipment that that bullet is going to go exactly where you want it to go when you touch it off, as long as you do your part, these guns that he has built for us are going to be shooting lights out. So I'm looking forward to the next few stages of load development that we're going to be working on over the next week or two here in our spare time, building a load for these guns, for this 20 BR, and seeing what we can do and get out there and see what kind of groupings we can get at 100, and maybe do some ladder testing a bit further distances, and shooting some steel for some practice for the rest of the summer, waiting for October to roll around so we can be ready for the upcoming coyote season.
Excellent, Jeff. And I didn't mean they weren't precision made. I just meant we might not be we might not be going through all the complete steps that you would do in, say, a PRS or an F class for all the preparation, but absolutely still precision. We want to make sure that our we put coyotes down, and we can do it at the ranges we feel comfortable with for any hang-ups or potential long shots that we need to take that me personally shooting the 223 might have been unable or more of a guessing game last year. We're going to try and eliminate that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, yeah, the F-class guys, shoot with some of those guys in the PRS game as well. They are unbelievable when it comes to how meticulous they are for their brass prep, their load development, all that stuff. They're trying to squeeze every last bit of accuracy out of those guns, their loads, everything else. I use this same technique for all my PRS loads as well, and even using a multi-stage progressive press. I typically will have on fired brass, I'll have a Redding Universal Decapper the first stage, my full-length bushing die in the second stage of the press, and the Sinclair Mandrel in either the 6.5 or the 6, depending on which caliber we're shooting, and in this same setup. And when I bring my 200 or 300 pieces of brass home from a match, it goes into the dry tumbler like we saw, or like we'll see, I guess, as soon as we get this out of here. And it goes to the cleaner to get cleaned. It gets lubed just like we did. I go through these, it'll go through 3 dyes. I will chamfer and deburr these next. Normally I wouldn't have to trim these. Dennis, again from Gold Ballistic Guns, Gunsmithing, has built me a little tool to tell us exactly how long our neck thickness or our neck length can be before we are maxed out. There's really nothing in the loading books for the 20 BR, so he came up with a little tool for me to be able to measure that in the chambers of our new barrels to tell us exactly what our maximum length can be, and then we'll take 10 thou typically off that to be a trim length, and that's what we'll use for if and when we ever need to trim. We'll probably run these through my trimming tool that is a 3-in-1 real time saver. Actually, Dennis hooked me up with that trimmer as well, and it's a huge time saver. So we'll see that here in the next step of this preparation.
And we'll demo that neck, the neck tool for length later on in this video, hey?
Yeah, we'll be able to show, now that we've had this brass sized, we'll be able to show that later on when we get to that point, how we can determine that. Being that basically this is a wildcat, there really isn't much out there for load development. There's obviously people using this, but to find that information on the internet per se or anywhere else isn't too readily available. There it is out there if you really want to spend a ton of time looking at it. As busy as we are with work and everything else we're trying to do. This little tools and tips and tricks that he's passed on to me obviously are greatly appreciated and makes a lot of sense, and it's super easy. The SAAMI specs, well, I don't know if there is a SAAMI spec on this, I don't know much about that, but we'll just follow his recommendations and we'll be safe. But when we get to that point, we'll talk about that. We'll show you how to do it. For these particular first go through, we did measure the overall length of the case from the cartridge base to the tip of the neck, to the top of the neck, I guess. And they will grow as we continue to squeeze that neck down from 243 down to the 204. They will grow because that brass has to go somewhere. But after being to a shot and measuring the first 20 test loads that we did, we were well under what the maximum case length of the neck is going to be, so no worries there as far as not growing too much. But we will trim these ever so slightly to get the champion burr, and basically everything will start at a universal length, if you will, so that just for consistency's sake, everything's going to start off at the same length, because they're running them through these dies. It won't be exact. They won't all grow the exact same amount that you think they should, but when I measured some earlier, they're 1 or 2 thou different here and there, but this will give us a consistent start point, and the more neck we have, the better off for this long, sleek 55 grain Berger bullet. So we're probably down to less than 100 rounds here now.
Well, why don't you take a break, Jeff, and I'll spell you off. Okay, getting down to the last of it, and I just got a pretty good setup here. There's It definitely makes doing volume a whole bunch easier. Last couple, and then I'll let Jeff take over and tell you what's next.
Nice work. Pass 2 complete.
Size brass.
Okay, so next, now that we've sized, gone through the full sizing process, getting that neck all the way down to our 20 caliber now, we're going to chamfer the inside and outside of the neck, chamfer and deburr, and we're gonna. Some of them will be trimmed ever so slightly, but we don't really want to trim much off this neck. So what we got here is this, again, Dennis from Gold Ballistic Gunsmithing set me up with this trimmer. He makes the collets for these cases. So this one's specific for the 20 BR. Use the same reamer that he cut the chambers on our barrels with, and it fits in there. So now that we've bumped all the shoulders ever so slightly, these will all be the same, and they'll all go into the collet at the same length. I set up the trimmer on the tool to just barely to touch it. So I've got a lock ring on there now that I've got it set to the proper length, and it's just a matter of turning the tool on, and it just takes a tiny bit off and chamfers the inside and outside of the neck all in one go. And if we needed to trim this any length we wanted to, we could, all in one pass, as opposed to the old school trim and then all, which is a huge time consumer. So doing this will take us not very long to do 300 pieces, which again is a huge time saver. So you can get going pretty quick.
And toss me one of those, Jeff, and then I'll grab and I'll show them just a little bit of difference that it's making compared to one that hasn't been done. So on these two, you can see it's just ever so slightly trimming, chamfering on both sides. Thank you. And you're not adding too much pressure, Jeff, you're just touching it down?
Just pushing it in so that the shoulder of the case fully seats against the inside of the collet. The trimmer is spinning at a very high RPM and doing the work for as long as you're seated fully against the shoulder. It just takes that off. There's our last piece, 300 pieces trimmed. Doesn't take very long, and that's done. Now these are fully neck sized down from 6 BR to 20 BR. We are chamfering the outside and all at a uniform length, and ready to go into the dry tumbler to get the lube off the case, because I do not want to wipe this all off my hand. And any of the little minor filings and stuff from the trimmer, it'll all come off in the vibe tumbler. So I'll head out to the shop and show you how we do that. So we've got our 300 pieces of brass. They're all nice and sized now, trimmed, chamfered, deburred, but they are still all covered in lube. And in order to get the lube off, you'd have to spend quite a bit of time rubbing each one off and getting it inside and out of the neck. So we're going to use some dry media. I use dry media for all of my rifle brass. I used to do some wet tumbling, but have found you get way better numbers on the chronograph, better groups, better ES and SDs by using dry media versus completely cleaning the necks. But this is brand new brass, so it is completely clean as far as carbon and whatnot goes. But we're going to use some walnut media. This I buy in a bulk bag from Princess Auto up here in Canada, and I think they use this for like sandblasting, stuff like that. But so we'll get that going, turn it on, flip the switch, and I usually put it on for a couple hours on the timer. So we'll let that run for a couple hours in the dry tumbler, and it'll get all that lube off the case, any filings or whatever inside the case left, if there should be any from the trimming. But any of that stuff will get all cleaned off, and a couple hours from now we'll have nice shiny brass with no more lube on it, ready to prime.
Excellent.
So we've been tumbling this brass that we've just finished sizing for about 2 hours in a walnut media, and I actually have used different stuff over the years. This is a fairly fine ground walnut shell. As you can see, I use it so that the flash holes don't get plugged up. It comes out of there pretty nice. And another little tip of the day, again from our very knowledgeable and good shooter and gunsmith Dennis Lair, a little cap full of new finish car polish in the media for a half an hour before you put the brass in, and it does a real good job shining that brass up. So we'll separate out all the media from the brass. Dump it all in there. Close it up. There we go. 300 pieces ready to prime.
Looks good.
We'll have to grab a container to take it back in down to the reloading room and start working, priming some brass.